Don Shackleton and I are now going to be joined by two gentlemen who were actually part of Don's football team from 63, 64, 65. We have with us today Rich Adamkiewicz on the end and John Cassily next to him between Rich and Mr. Shackleton. I call him Mr. Shackleton. I guess at this point we maybe should start calling him Coach, if that's okay with you, Coach.
Anything.
Call you anything?
Anything.
All right. So guys, tell us a couple things about how you felt playing for Coach Shackleton. What do you remember about playing for Coach Shackleton? What do you remember about being at Brunswick High School?
You know, Jim, it was a very meaningful time in all of our lives. I think that Don and the football program brought a lot of stability to us. And he taught us how to lead a good life, work hard, and we did. And he was always a good role model for us. And we always went back to Don. And whenever you do something, you say, well, what would Coach think about that? And he's sort of a guiding light, and he was very important in all of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of got on the football team in a weird way because I was only a freshman, and all my friends were upperclassmen. So when football practice started, I was kind of like running around the neighborhood looking for something to do. So I'd come up and watch practice. And then one day I just thought, well, I might as well practice with the team until freshman football starts. So I asked Coach, I said, do you mind if I practice with the team? And he said no, and he pointed me to the equipment room in the gymnasium, and I just went back there and found some equipment and came out, and I never left. I went there every night. And it was the most enjoyable 4 years of my life. You know, Don made a comment earlier about Brunswick being just a nice place to grow up. And I came from the west side of Cleveland also. He was on West 47th, I was on West 50th, a few years apart. But when we came to Brunswick, it was like a whole new world opening up. And with sports and everything else. We weren't the toughest around, but well, let me take that back. I think we were the toughest around. We just didn't win a lot of games sometimes, but we left bodies on the field when we were done. So it was an enjoyable time.
Well, I remember I was just coming into the high school when you guys were going out. But I do remember that one year, my sophomore year, being pretty much in I don't want to be overly dramatic about it, but you know, as a 15, 16-year-old sophomore, suiting up in the locker room with guys like Rich Adamkiewicz or John Cassily or J.D. Ford or Ken Kettler or all those guys, you know, the Mellowicks. It was something for me to just kind of step back because you guys were all like giants, and I was just a young kid coming in. I just sucked up all the knowledge and information I could and learned what I could from not only Coach Shackleton but you guys. It was a great learning process for me as a young kid. I was in awe of you guys, honestly. I think I told you that once before, John.
Yeah.
It was Brunswick always seemed to have, just like today, to this day, although Brunswick hasn't had in the win column very successful the last couple of years, but just like back then, there are a lot of tough kids in Brunswick. I mean, tough kids. You know, we never really had the quickest tailback or the, you know, maybe the very best quarterback. We never had the elite skill position, I guess. But Brunswick's never had a problem with lining up a bunch of really tough, strong kids. I know that for a fact because I've been around it for a long time. And I don't know what it was like when Bill Jacobs was a coach, but I know that my knowledge of the football program goes back to 1964, 65, and that's a long time. I don't know what it was like before before you came along, Don. I don't know, what was it like to play for Bill Jacobs?
Bill Jacobs had a glass eye, and he was very, very mean. He was the disciplinarian of the school. And I think that's what I became when I was here. Guys got in trouble. Maud Edwards would send people down to my office in the gym. And it always wasn't a song and a dance. I sort of was the disciplinarian when I was here, from grades 8 through 12. I remember we all got together one time at I think you had a reunion one time, and some guy showed up, and they were telling my wife that this guy he paddled me a lot. He paddled everybody a lot. And if you needed to get paddled, you got paddled. And when Jacobs was here, it was the same way. But with his glass eye, you never knew if he was looking at you or not. He was mean. He was really a mean guy. But he was like my dad. He and I spent a lot more time together than my own dad and I did. He took care of, like I said, I played all 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball, and he was the coach. We didn't have a basketball coach or a baseball coach. He coached all 3 sports. And you played with him, you spent a lot of time with him. And I said I really enjoyed going to school here. I played all 3 sports. When I was a junior, I had the male lead in the junior play. And when I was still a junior, I had the male lead in the senior play. They couldn't find another guy to have the male lead in the senior play because
They couldn't find another guy that had your talent.
So I became the lead in the senior play when I was a junior. And I was in all the choruses and the choirs, and you'd have thought I was Bing Crosby, but hell, I was Joey Bag of Donuts, you know. But I enjoyed going to school. I never wanted to miss school, because you said, what do? We went to school. I really enjoyed going to school.
Let's talk for a minute about the field, the football field.
Oh.
You know, we're on this site. We're on this site now, and you walk out the door,
Yeah.
and there's a beautiful stadium out there. I mean,
It's
turf,
awesome.
and
Well,
it's an awesome place.
The field we had when I was
Yeah.
here is a field, the original football field, when Brunswick started football right after World War II, was in front of what you guys knew as the middle school.
And it was later called for people that are watching at home. It was the we're talking about the plot of land that was in front of the Byzantiner building. That
Right.
was the football field.
That was the football field. And it was really a field. It was a field, but it sure had never been mowed. You know, it was like going down on Minor Road, Minor Drive, and saying, let's play over here. But Brunswick had the first coach they had after World War II was a guy named Ralph Stump. And Ralph Stump started the football program and the basketball program. And that's the field they played on. And the one thing I remember is Brunswick had a guy named George Tomko. George Tomko was the toughest guy I have ever known in my life. When he ran, his head was about that high off the ground, and he was like a bulldozer. He was crazier now, but he was tough. And then along came the Paulus family and the Nura family, Joe and Ted Nura, and then Eddie Nura. Eddie played with me. And there became some younger Nuras that didn't want to play when I came back as a coach. I think there was a Pete Nura. I tried to get him to play. He didn't want to play.
Vic.
But between
Vic. There was Vic.
there
Yeah.
was a Victor. He didn't want. I don't think anyone wanted to play when I came back as a coach. But anyhow, that was.
So when was the field behind the building, the one that we played on? Do you recall about when that was put in, Don?
That was put in that was put in when I was in school. If you remember that field, the field came down a hill.
Right.
What it really was, it was the outfield for the baseball diamond.
Okay.
During World War II, every town had a town baseball team. Brunswick had a town base. My brother played on that team. Valley City had a team. Hinckley had a team. Granger had a team. All these guys that came back from the military. And the baseball diamond, which was the outfield of the original baseball diamond, there were light poles over here, and one over here, I think. And it actually was the outfield, the football field was part of the outfield for the baseball diamond, all right? And when I was in school, we played baseball on the baseball diamond. And we played football where you guys played, all right? But you remember what we did at gym class every time? We picked up rocks. Go pick up the rocks and the horse poop, all right? Because Al Sago would have his horse show on our football field. Between the rocks, you'd have thought the grass would have grown better with the horse. We should have left the horse poop on the field, all right? But all we did was pick up rocks. And then a few years ago, I think Jeff and I came out here to watch Brunswick play. I walked in, I looked at the stadium here. I didn't see any rocks.
No, there's no rocks
I don't
out
see
there.
any horse poop either.
No.
You guys ought to be winning games. No rocks, no horse. No. The hell is this? You know.
They used
But
to
I remember
hold,
one year, if I'm remembering right, I think I went to Akron. Akron, maybe Canton, to see Brunswick play Massillon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was a high school principal at that time. Yeah.
Didn't they play Massillon?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, boy, what a deal. We were happy to beat Buckeye
Yeah.
Right.
7-0. First game they had ever won. And here they are playing Massillon,
Yeah.
the epitome of football.
Right. Yeah.
All right. And I think they had a very good quarterback during those days.
Yeah, we had quite a few good quarterbacks.
Yeah. But I thought, what a difference. Then Jeff and I came out here and I saw this stadium. I thought, wow, where's the horse poop? Yeah.
you need to look at the middle school stadium.
Yeah.
They have one there too?
Yeah,
yeah.
just like this one, if not nicer.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But they had the horse show, I think it was every Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And then we would have to come back on Monday and practice football.
Yeah.
And my most vivid memory, well, you know, a lot of those road apples were still fresh. And I got tackled and I fell chest first into a big pile and my face mask kind of dug a lot of it up. His comment was, now you'll grow bigger.
Yeah.
And I looked like I'd been shoveling manure all weekend.
Now, Rich, where did you grow up in Brunswick? What street?
John and I were neighbors. We live, what, 3 houses away from one another off of Meadowbrook.
Oh, Meadowbrook.
on
Okay.
off of 303. Yeah, we both came in that same summer, and we developed our friendship then. And
You both moved into Brunswick at the same time?
He was here a little bit before us, but not
A
much.
couple months maybe.
Yeah.
But we had a good childhood back then, and we spent a lot of time back in the woods, a lot of times fishing, and it was a very happy time. And then get to put football together, that was icing on the cake. And having Don as a coach, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I remember when, in '65, when they relieved him of his job, I went to the next Board of Education meeting as a kid. I don't know if you remember Elmer Deering. He was one of the community guys that was, for whatever reason, he just didn't like our brand of football. And he was pushing to get Coach fired. He'd been pushing for a couple of years. But I went to the board afterwards. And I was like only 18 years old, just getting ready to graduate from high school, and there I am telling the board off. But I realized one thing, and that is that up to his point in time, he was the winningest coach that Brunswick had ever had. He had won more games in the 7 years that that he was here. And I know when he came, they had just graduated, like 10 seniors. So I don't think you really didn't inherit much of a team.
Yeah.
And with the 10 seniors, they hadn't lost. And then we all coached. So can you imagine coming straight out of college and being a head football coach?
That's pretty unique.
Yep. And I never regretted a minute of it. He was a good coach. He taught us how to play football. He taught us how to be men. And he taught how to keep us out of trouble, too. So.
Don was able to take a bunch of us who had probably mediocre ability and develop those abilities to do the best we can and really put out a good effort. And I feel very good about that. He just got a way to motivate people, and you don't want to let him down. You just couldn't let him down.
Right. Yeah. We're fortunate. The three of us are fortunate to have been able to have people like Don as our mentor, coach, father figures in a sense. It means a lot, and he did it very well. Anything else, Don?
No, I think I'm big-headed enough right now.
Well, everything it said is
You guys
well
keep going.
deserved.
I'm just going to move back to Brunswick.
There's only one problem.
What's that?
He was a place kicker in high school.
I didn't know
I
that.
read the articles.
I didn't know you were a place
No,
kicker.
I punted too.
Okay. But I never knew this until I started looking at those articles. I didn't realize he was kicking extra points in high school, okay?
I didn't know that either.
And then, I don't know if you kicked in college. Did you
Yeah.
kick extra points in college?
No,
He had me work. I worked every night after practice kicking extra points. Okay? Do you know how many extra points I kicked in 4 years?
How many?
None, because he never kicked an extra point. And then I go through those articles, and I found he was kicking them in high school.
He was training you for that big moment that never came?
I kicked and I punted, John. I did both, even in college.
Well, you were good. I
Well,
admit I wasn't good, but I could kick an extra point.
My first 2 years of college, you had to play both ways. They were trying to do away with specialists. All right, for some reason, I don't know. They were given too many scholarships. I don't know why it was. But if you came out of the game, you had to stay out to the end of the quarter before you could go back in. So I played quarterback and single wing. I played the tailback. On the tee, I played quarterback. On defense, I played cornerback. All right. So, and then I punted and I kicked off. All right. So I didn't have to come out of the game. And when I went to BW, there was a junior quarterback ahead of me. And the second game we played in Charleston, West Virginia. We played Morris Harvey. It's now called Charleston University, but then it was Morris Harvey. The year before, they won the Division III National Championship. And a very good friend of mine now played on that team. Well, we could only take 20-some players because we flew down in a DC-3. I had never been on a plane before. and we got all our equipment in the back somewhere or something, and we all took, and we could only take 20-some players because we were flying on this DC-3. Well, I was concerned about flying. I had never flown before. And there was a little lady sitting over there, and she was knitting. And thank God I thought, if that lady, we're getting ready to take off, that little lady's over there sitting, she can't be too worried. So I shouldn't be too worried. So we flew to Charleston. The airport in Charleston, they took two mountaintops and they flattened them. And when we got to Charleston, it was 90 degrees and it was so humid, it became foggy. And we got a bus from the airport down to the stadium. The stadium is still there. Every time I go through there, I says, I stayed on that field. I played on that field. That night I became the starting quarterback because Morris Harvey was tough. And after about the first 10 minutes, we were losing like 14-0, and then 8, I don't know what, we were getting our butt whipped. And the coach says, second string, get ready. So we went in. We played the rest of the game. And I'll never forget, in the fourth quarter, and in Charleston, they had all those chemical plants. And at night, they blow out their stacks or something. You could smell it. You could, it was, it was so humid. Well, I played the whole game. In the fourth quarter, I punted, and this hillbilly caught the ball, and he ran. I just watched him run. Run faster. I'm not chasing you. So after the game, they said the Charleston airport was too fogged in to fly out of. So they were going to take us to Huntington, let us fly home from Huntington. We got on a bus. I was sitting in the very last seat of the bus. And I didn't want to move. I was so whipped. And we got about halfway to Huntington, and I heard all this noise. The engine was right under me. And I heard this bang. And I looked out the rear window, and here was pistons and rods and rings and all other stuff laying on the highway, white hot. It blew the engine out. We sat there for, it seemed like 3 days. Finally, a state trooper came by and saw that we were in trouble. And he called somebody, and they said, they're sending another bus out for you. What happened after that, I don't know. I don't remember getting on another bus. I don't remember getting on an airplane. I don't remember getting off an airplane in Cleveland. I don't remember getting back to the fraternity house. I have no idea.
How do you explain that?
I don't know. I was so whipped. I think I just slept right through it.
Oh.
But I became the starting quarterback. And the next game we played was against Kent State, the school that I didn't go to because they were too big. If I'd have had any brains at all, I'd have checked Baldwin Wallace. Baldwin Wallace was not in a conference at that time. All we played was MAC schools. After playing Morris Harvey, we played Kent State at home. Well, we got our butt whipped. Then we played Bowling Green, Toledo, Youngstown, Eastern Michigan. We played all of it. We didn't play Miami. I don't know why. I think the only school that was sort of our size, we did play Ohio Wesleyan. But we played all those schools and just plain got our butt kicked. And my senior year at BW in the spring quarter, Lee Tressel came to BW. And when I took my oral comps, Lee said, can I sit in on your comps? I said, glad to. And he said, I understand you have a job lined up. I said, yeah. He said, what offense are you going to run? I said, single wing. Lee Tressel played at BW. He played under Ray Watts and Eddie Finnegan. It was Eddie Finnegan's single wing. I had played that from the 7th grade all the way up through high school. I was a tailback, single wing tailback. Tressel had played the same offense. And he and I sat there and talked for 2 hours on the single wing. I got an A on my oral comps, you know. Then he wasn't the head, I never played for him, but he became a very dear friend. And Bonnie and his wife Eloise became very, very close. And I remember Jimmy when he was that tall. You know, Jimmy was always at the field. And then, as luck would have it, 10, 12 years ago, or when, I forget, I get years mixed up, when Jimmy was the head coach at Ohio State, we had a guy named Mike Showalter who played at Bay Village. He played at Ohio State. He played under Earl Bruce, all right? But he and I went down, and in the morning we played the Scarlet Golf Course. Played 18 holes at the Scarlet Golf Course. And then we went to the Woody Hayes Center and watched practice that afternoon. This is when Jimmy was still the coach. Now, along with him was Earl Bruce, who was the head coach at Sandusky when I was here at Brunswick. And then he went on to coach at Ohio State. And another guy that was there was Art Schleister. This is before Schleister really got in his last jackpot. He was using the Woody Hayes Center as a rehab facility. And shortly after that, he bilked that woman out of like $4 or $5 million.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think he went to prison again after that. But anyhow, what a pleasure that was to go with Mike down to Ohio State and just go through. We had a guide, and the guide was walking, and he and Mike would go, I'm stopping, I'm looking at everything, you know. What a thrill that was that day, you know. But Jimmy's mom, Eloise, and Bonnie died the same year, 2000. And Eloise had a showing at the gym at BW. And one of the nicest guys I've ever met, Neil Malachi, was there. I love Neil Malachi. He was the greatest intimist, other than Maud Edwards.
Yeah.
He was a great one, I thought. Was he there when you were there, Jim?
Yes.
He knew every person's name. Yeah.
Well, I think we're about out of time. I'm glad you guys could join us for a little bit.
You too, Jim.
But before we go, I do want to, on behalf of all of us, 4 of us up here, I want to thank the Beat Club, the students that
Oh, yeah.
that made us feel
excellent
welcome
job.
today.
Great job, guys.
Yeah, great job, John Masilko, and letting us record this in the Beat studio, and you guys have been tremendous. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll say goodbye.